Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is point of view. The point of view from which we observe or experience a situation can shift our perception of ourselves and shift our emotional state. So before we get into it, it'll be a good conversation, but let's take a minute or two to get present first. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your palms together and feel the friction and all that sensation, and allow those tickling and tingling and all those feelings to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So great to be here with you this morning. We're talking today about point of view. And this comes from a conversation I had yesterday, which it was really, really interesting. So this person had been having family members visit. And we all know with guests, we all know how it can be with guests that, guests that are there for an extended period of time, it can wear on one. And so what was being experienced was a teetering between or feeling that a teetering between wanting to support someone, help someone, and also on the other side feeling taken advantage of, feeling maybe unappreciated. And so I think that this is a really common dynamic that so many of us have experienced. And what was arising was some feelings of resentment, for not being appreciated, for not being, for a lack of reciprocity. And so the person was starting to feel bad about themselves, feeling like, well, am I being selfish? Am I being cheap? And in our conversation, we got to look at, wow, you know what? It's not about being selfish. It's not about being cheap. It's that, in fact, you've been really, really generous. And in this conversation, their whole experience of themselves and of the circumstance shifted, because in recognizing their generosity, they gave themselves permission to set some desperately needed boundaries as well. And they felt good about themselves instead of accusing themselves of being cheap, and getting or selfish, recognizing that in fact they truly had been tremendously generous. And I think, this juxtaposition of viewpoint is something that we encounter in so many circumstances in our lives. We have so many opportunities to be looking at things from a different point of view. And there's so much power in that because we have, just like our other habits of behavior, we have emotional habits as well. And so an emotional habit might be thinking the worst of ourselves, or beating ourselves up, or making ourselves unimportant. Putting ourselves last. We may have getting angry, responding with anger, believing that people just want to take advantage of us. I've encountered folks who were raised to believe that people don't like you, they just are concerned with what's in your pocket, which is imagine that kind of point of view growing up and trying to relate to other human beings. Where does that leave you? To believe that nobody can like you, they're just concerned with what you have and possibly getting what you have. So in this situation, it became a transformation to recognize that instead of beating oneself up for being not giving enough, to recognize the generosity that was actually there. I'm looking at what other kinds of vantage points. Well, we talked about one the other day where I recounted to you my conversation with a friend where I said I'm lost, and in further thought came to the recognition that it's not that I was lost, it's that I was finding my way. And the distinction in the feeling there is night and day. It's really radically different to be finding one's way versus feeling lost. Good morning, ladies, Kimberly and Bernadette. So great to have you here with us this morning. Thank you for showing up and chiming in. Great to be with you. So we're talking about point of view and how critical it is to our well-being, and how our point of view really impacts our sense of self and well-being. And it's how we create context, right? Context for interpreting things, the lens through which we're seeing, literally point of view. This is right here is my point of view. And I have the range of view that I am able to see from that vantage point. If I move to a different place, I have literally a different point of view. And in neurolinguistic programming, NLP, that kind of conversation that is a shift of point of view is called a reframe. In other words, creating a new frame around something, a story, or creating a new context, a new lens through which we can interpret a circumstance or a series of events or whatever. So one of the perpetual lenses that I use that has transformed my life, really truly has been foundational to a shift, and it's something that I continue to grow into. Sorry about that. That I continue to grow into, and that is that life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. And that's a challenging place to come from, particularly when life is serving up circumstances that are painful, difficult, tragic, undesirable, to imagine that life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. And in those circumstances, again, this is all point of view. If I am able to presence myself to that notion that life is happening for me, in the moment, even if I can't necessarily access an understanding of that, if I can maintain a faith that that is so, it allows me to go through what I go through with a deeper underlying grace. That's the only way I can think of to speak it at the moment. That even though in this moment it doesn't feel great, or it doesn't feel like it makes any sense, or it doesn't feel like it's serving me, that at some point, and I may never know, actually, I was going to say at some point I'll see that there was a gift there. Growing and transforming is often really painful, right? It just is, where we're so entrenched in our thought patterns or our behavior patterns or our perspective or our predispositions. We're so deeply entrenched that it often takes a crowbar of disruption or tragedy to disentangle us from the things that are holding us, really holding us hostage. We don't even realize it, so yeah, we can have situations that we encounter and say, well, that's the last straw, that's it, I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make a change now, because the heck with this, like in a job, for instance, or in a living situation where things just become untenable, and you say, that's all, and that's that, I'm done with this. And it comes out of anger or reaction or frustration or whatever. And then you get the opportunity to look at the fact that this was the crowbar you needed to be able to make the change that you've been wanting and needing to make for who knows how long, right? You just needed the added incentive that was going to get your butt up and out, or up and moving, right? I've seen it with myself, that I can get very comfortable, right? I can get comfortable and maybe somewhat complacent and know I need a change, but am not taking the initiative to make that change until something comes along and tweaks me to say, okay, that's it, time to move. So Kimberly says, I know subconsciously you don't even realize that it's happening. It's true. It's really, really interesting, when that kind of thing. I had something like that happen recently, and at first I was just enraged, and I recognizing that I was so angry, like I was so triggered. I recognized that, and it gave me the opportunity, which I took, to look at what's going on that I got so angry and so tweaked. And so, that was awesome. That was a great discovery. And I realized that it also gave me the incentive, the push that I needed to take care of what I needed to take care of, to make the change I needed to make. Bernadette says, with finding out, oh boy, Bernadette, finding out yesterday I have 2 large masses in one side of my breast is making sense of what really matters to me. Comes with the saying I've always had, quality over quantity. Bernadette, hopes and prayers and lots of love coming your way. And seeing you healthy and whole. Hopefully these masses are benign and you're going to be fine. And you have the strength of all our love behind you. So please keep us informed as to what's going on. And I hope that you have the opportunity to find peace in the process, and just being there with you, holding you high. Jenny, good morning. Good morning. Kimberly says, I've experienced this and I know I must work at my sobriety daily. Slings and arrows can come at you. I've been working hard. Good for you, Kimberly. Congratulations. Yes, and the slings and arrows are an opportunity they're kind of tests, and they're an opportunity to be able to look at what the underlying wounds are, rather than allowing those slings and arrows to pierce to your heart. If they do, just notice as you remove them, oh, there was a wound there already. And what is that? And how can I heal that for myself? So good for you, Kimberly. Jenny. Wow. Jenny says, I have to share my wonderful news. Yesterday, I spoke with my daughter for over an hour. Jenny, amazing. And congratulations, all the work that you've been doing, all the support you've been getting. I'm so glad to hear that you had that opportunity, and it sounds like it was a good conversation. Healing happens. Kimberly says, replying to Bernadette, oh dear, stay strong. I keep you in prayers. Bernadette says, thank you. I'll know more on the 30th. So Bernadette, please keep us informed. I am going to be away from September 1st through the 14th. So hopefully you'll be able to share with us what's going on, Bernadette, and we can be tremendously supportive of you in this journey. Jenny says, so sorry, B, I know what you mean about quality and quantity. And Kimberly says, I will. So stay strong. And Bernadette says, congratulations, Jenny. Yeah, this is a big deal, Jenny. Something shifted. Something in you shifted. That's what I'm going to say. Something in you shifted to make space for that opportunity, for the transformation that allowed you to be in communication with your daughter. So I'm so thrilled. So Jenny says, my 46th birthday is on Saturday, the 27th, and I got my wish. Well, happy birthday, Jenny. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So perspective, point of view, right? When we recognize that we can shift our point of view. And Jenny, I know for you, we've been talking a lot about experiencing your love for your daughter rather than the loss and the hurt. And I'm wondering if perhaps that was what you were able to do. And here she was. So I don't know, but I would venture to say that something within you and your point of view shifted, which then shifted your frequency, your energy in the world, which then allowed for this reunion to occur. So I wish you just joy and ease as you two hopefully get reconnected. So that's wonderful. I'm wondering if you guys have a sense of a situation in your own lives where a shift of point of view changed everything for you. You know, where seeing something different changed everything. This idea of a reframe. So I remember years and years ago, there was one point where I was hating my job so much that I finally said, that's it. As of the new year, I'm out of this job. And just before the end of the year, I was given sort of an ultimatum in the job that I just said no. And that was it. And the thing is, I wasn't ready for it. And it kind of threw me into a tailspin, and it was the best thing that ever happened, you know, because it got me out of that job that I really truly hated, and I wouldn't have left on my own without that ultimatum. So, you know, the crowbar to shift perspective can be a really helpful thing. So Jenny says, I felt a darkness lifted from me. Jenny, I am so thrilled to hear that. That is a wonderful thing. And I would say that you made some kind of shift, and that allowed that to be the case. And I'm so thrilled for you. That's so huge. Bernadette says, may your journey, Jenny, be smooth and joyful. Yes, indeed. Indeed. So what other perspective shifts? And we talk about this a lot, you know, is the glass half full or half empty? And maybe it's both and it's half full and it's half empty. And we get to choose the perspective, or we get to recognize that they're both true. So Kimberly says, I'm thankful for this opportunity. I shifted. You sure did, Kimberly. It sounds like you really did. And congratulations. And it's a constant series of choices. It's a constant progression. You know, our transformations are not once and done. You know, as we complete one transformation, 10 more open up for us. So Jenny says, it's time for transformation. And Jenny says, and who fills your glass? That's a great question too, Jenny. Yes, who does? Ultimately, we fill our own glasses, I think. You know, when we rely on others to fill our glass for us, then we're in for a world of pain. And because people have their own stuff that they need to handle, they can't always concern themselves with filling our glass for us, can they? So yeah, let's see. So Bernadette says, I had a lapse of turmoil when my son moved provinces away with my grandchildren. Now we have regular FaceTimes. So that's awesome. I remember when your son was moving, Bernadette, and how there was a heartbrokenness there. And I'm thrilled to hear that you have regular FaceTimes, that you have connection with each other. You know, I have more contact with people through Zoom and FaceTime than I do with people that are actually in physical proximity to me. You know, it's crazy. So, you know, I have friends that I know on Zoom that I've never physically met in person, but I consider them very much a part of my heart. It's crazy, right? Those are some of the wonderful things about technology. So Kimberly says, God and the angels. So I think that that's in response to Jenny's question, and who fills your glass? Kimberly says, God and the angels. I love it. So we do have the opportunity to be our own best friends. And that has some big ramifications. It goes into how do we treat ourselves? How do we nurture ourselves through tragedy and pain? How do we celebrate our triumphs? How do we be a good friend to ourselves? Bernadette says, had to switch from hurt to grateful to have technology that allows me possibilities. Exactly, Bernadette. So that's a beautiful change in point of view. So you were feeling hurt and maybe, loss you were feeling, and now grateful to have the technology that connects. Congratulations. Much more empowered place to be. And it is a shift of heart and mind, and it shifts your experience. Really super powerful. Jenny says, others don't have to meet your need, and depending on you for needs leads to great despair. So I think that when we are dependent upon others to make us whole, we can't be whole, because that's not something someone can do for us. And when we're whole, then we can be more present for others as well. So I think, point of view, take a look at where you're experiencing pain, and if there's a way to shift your perspective so that your experience shifts. Because circumstances are as they are, doesn't mean they're going to continue forever. And that's also a perspective, right? Is to say, this is how things are and it's always going to be that way, versus this is how things are and things can change in a heartbeat. Very different experience. So test it out and notice where you can enliven and empower yourself through shifting your vantage point, and use that tool to enrich your life and enrich your joy. So Jenny says, I believe that you have to love yourself before others can love you. Well, I do believe you have to love yourself before you can receive love from others, before you can actually experience it. Because if you don't love yourself, there's no room to believe that you could be lovable. So here's to love, here's to being willing to receive and to cultivating love and care for ourselves and for others as a result. Good morning, Dido. So good to have you here with us. Welcome. And Jenny says, yep, that's what I meant. So lots of love to all of you, and such gratitude for your sharing and your engagement. And it means everything to have you guys show up here and be willing to have these conversations and to be so authentic and vulnerable in your sharing. And I'm just so grateful to you. I can't even tell you. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, EWN One with the Earth, and Enlightened World Living. And until next time, so much love.